49ers Web Zone, No Huddle Podcast. We are back. We're back on the air. We're back for the 2022 season. I am so pumped. Training camp is just days away for the Niners. I got the itch again, man. I got the football itch. The show is ready to go. Zain is not with us this week. He's actually expecting a baby, so congrats to him. But we do have the new third member of our crew right now. So I took a lot of if you listen to the show, you know I took a lot of the offseason off, and Brian Rennick filled in, and he did such a good job that we were like, hey, man, let's make him the third co-host. And Brian is here. And Brian, dude, welcome, man. I'm really excited to do this show with you over the next year.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. I am genuinely appreciative that you guys asked me to be on. Again, Al, you are a legend in our 49ers community. And the No Huddle podcast has been a podcast that I listened to, before I even joined the Web Zone. And so I started writing for the Web Zone back in 2020. And now I am writing, not as much, but my main role is as editor. I'm not David Benny. I'm not our managing editor. I am editing the articles that our writers are putting out. And then also, I have another podcast with my good buddy Tim Sprinkles that we call the Denim Dungeon podcast. And so again, just really grateful for this opportunity and really excited to figure out this 3-man weave with you and Zain once he comes back. Although, again, he is expecting a new baby. So hopefully he comes back, but yeah, it's the second one. So not that it's any easier, but it is a little bit easier than the first. So we're excited for Zain, excited for his wife, and excited to get him back on when all of that kind of settles down a little bit. But like you said, 49ers training camp starts next week. I'm excited. I'm trying to get down there. I think I'm going to try and get down on Thursday. I also have tickets for Monday, August 1st, but yeah, I'm pumped. I am over the moon excited about this season, and not only to watch football, but to talk about 49ers football.
I'm also excited about this YouTube thing, man. Like, I feel like the old man with the trying to learn the remote. Like, I feel like we're late to the party with this. We have all these people doing. I'm going on these YouTube shows for people, and I'm like, is this worth it? And they're like, dude, you have no idea. So we're gonna give it a try. We're gonna try to build this Web Zone YouTube station up, and we are in the infant stages of it. I think there's a few videos on there right now, but we're gonna try to make it work, man. We're gonna do the No Huddle podcast here, and then they'll be obviously available wherever podcasts are available, Spotify and wherever else, Apple, iTunes, wherever else you guys have been listening. But we'll do that. Maybe we'll hop on before a game, after a game. We'll have some player interviews, some old players. We have a lot of NFL media that come on our show. So maybe we'll do some of that with YouTube, and that'll be a cool thing to do. So it's exciting. Look out for that. But Brian, where would a show be if we didn't start it with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I mean, this is the
look at our first comment. We have one comment right now, and here it is.
Jimmy will get traded. We're you know what? Tim, we are going to talk about it. We're going to get into it.
We are.
This Garoppolo thing, the report from Ian Rappaport comes out, was it a couple days ago, where he's like, no, he's not going to be ready until mid-August. And then the next day, the report from Schefter comes out, like the Niners have given permission to give a trade, which I was like, they gave him permission months ago. Like, what is he even talking about? So just more drama. And before we get into where he's going and what we think is going to happen, Brian, I want to ask you, regardless, we're in the home stretch now with Garoppolo, sure. I think. To you, what is his legacy? When somebody asks you, what did Jimmy Garoppolo do for this team? What is his legacy to you?
I think he has a complicated legacy. And I don't necessarily know that is all his fault. Jimmy Garoppolo became the 49ers quarterback at a time when 49er fans were desperate for just adequate quarterback play. There was a stretch after Cap where, man, it was no good quarterback play to be found anywhere. And even that first year of Shanahan, when we're excited about the likes of Brian Hoyer, right, and a rookie out of Iowa by the name of C.J. Beathard, and he came that season, right, Shanahan's first season. He was the hot name. He was Brady's heir apparent in New England, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, we got to get rid of this guy because Tom just apparently, is, I don't know, an alien and will continue to play football until he's 65 years old. So we don't really need Jimmy. It sounded like Belichick kind of was pushing Kraft to be like, hey, let's move on from Brady. Let's move on, and let's give it to Garoppolo. Kraft was like, no, thanks. And so Belichick, it seems like, just out of spite, was like, fine, then I'll trade him for almost nothing, right? And so the 49ers get him, and, he sits for a little bit, and then he comes into that Seahawks game at the end, throws a touchdown. Everyone loses their mind. Next week, he starts for the Bears, and they go on a 5-0 run to end the season and, put them in position to really take off. We finally have a quarterback, right? And then 2018 happens. He tears his ACL in week, what was that, 3? And then all of a sudden it's like, we suck again, right? But ultimately that did get us Nick Bosa, so I'm not terribly upset about that. And then, he comes back in 2019 and leads them to the Super Bowl. And then in 2020, he gets injured again. And then in 2021, he leads them to the NFC Championship game, though there were injuries in there as well. And so, ultimately, I think his legacy, my hope personally, is that 49er fans, as we move forward, even into the Trey Lance era, will look back fondly on Jimmy Garoppolo and what he did bring to this team. And what he brought to this team was respectability at the quarterback position. Is he, a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? I would say no. I think he's definitely one of the top 32, right? I think he deserves a starting spot somewhere. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think as 49er fans, we have such high expectations for players from that position. When you go through a stretch of Hall of Fame play, right, from Joe Montana to Steve Young, as fans, I was a kid. Steve Young was more my guy than Joe Montana just because of my age, right? Whereas my podcast partner on the Denim Dungeon, Tim Sprinkles, Joe Montana is just like a hero to him. But I would argue we got spoiled, right? With sustained Hall of Fame quarterback play. And it'll be interesting to see a fan base like the Packers once Aaron Rodgers is gone, to go from Favre to Rodgers. It'll be interesting to see where they go from there. But I think they're going to have kind of the same situation. And so I think there was a standard that Jimmy Garoppolo was probably never going to meet, right? Unless he won that Super Bowl, and he didn't. And I think part of his legacy is that missed overthrow to Emmanuel Sanders. I think 49er fans will largely remember that. But like I said, we were in the valley of the shadow of death when it came to quarterback play prior to his arrival. Right. And at the very least, he allowed Kyle Shanahan to display his prowess as a head coach and as an offensive play caller. And I think Kyle Shanahan got every ounce of what he could out of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that offense was designed more around his limitations than what he actually brought physically to the table. And I think ultimately one of the things that I'll remember is that knee injury, I really feel like kind of derailed him a little bit. I mean, if you watch him play football, it still looks like he doesn't trust that knee. He doesn't trust, he won't step up into the pocket, especially if it's muddled. He can't really escape the pocket anymore. His athleticism went down a little bit after that knee injury. And so there are definitely things that you can point to and be like, this is why they're moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. But ultimately, I think his legacy is, hey, he brought respectability back to the position. He allowed Kyle Shanahan to establish himself in Santa Clara. And now it's sink or swim for Shanahan and for Lynch, right? With Trey Lance. They made their bed with Trey Lance, and now it's time to lay in it. And I'm excited. I have all the hope in the world that he is going to be really, really good. But we're going to see. But he at least allowed Kyle Shanahan to stay the head coach of the 49ers. And for me, I think that might be the thing I'm most grateful for.
Yeah, and you brought up, you said the word complicated, and I think that's a good way to put it. So when he came in, you got to remember those years. So you're talking 4 head coaches in 4 years. That may have been as dark and maybe as embarrassment of a franchise as this franchise has ever been. The Harbaugh thing happens, and I never said with Harbaugh, wasn't that they got rid of Harbaugh, because Harbaugh is kind of nuts, right? I mean, dude's crazy. So if they had to get rid of him, I understand. It's not that they got rid of him. It's what happened after they got rid of him, right? You do the Jim Tom Sula thing, and then he lasts a year, and then Chip Kelly, that was a disaster, absolute disaster. And they should have gotten rid of Balky when they got rid of Tom Sula, but they keep him a year, and that year was just a waste. It was just a wasted year. And then you bring in Shanahan, and you're hoping, but they were 1-10, man. And a lot of the things that the people they brought in wasn't working. And then Jimmy comes in and you have that excitement, right? But then the complication starts. The next year, they did not look good those first 3 games. And Jimmy was I think it was a holding call on a pick 6. If that doesn't get called, they're 0-3. So didn't look good. The knee injury happens. But then 2019, I thought during the regular season, he played pretty well. Considering the knee injury coming back from, I thought he had a good season. Was he prolific? No, but I thought he had a good season. He had some really strong games that year.
I'd say he was prolific in some games for sure.
Yeah, the New Orleans game, the Halloween game against the Cardinals. He was terrific at Seattle. I was like, wow, I think we got our guy because I think he's going to get better. Then the playoffs happen, and I'm like, Kyle does not trust him. Right. And again, I started to, and people, no, you're crazy. Why would you not run the ball? They were running it. I'm like, no, again, come down to reality. He took the ball out of his hands 2 games in a row. I understand they were running the ball against Green Bay, but Jimmy almost threw an interception in I think it was the early second or late first quarter. That bounced out of the guy's hands. And then Kyle, that was it. He didn't throw anymore. And he did trust him a little bit more in the Super Bowl, but then in the fourth quarter, he didn't play well. So that happens. And then the Brady stuff, and then, okay, they do have faith in him. But then I think 2020 is where the complications really boiled over because he's hurt again, right?
Yep.
There was a little bit of discrepancy between what he thought his injuries were, his camp anyway, and the Niners. Now, all of a sudden, Kyle Shanahan has 3 10-loss seasons in 4 years. Right. I don't care how good of a coach you are. If the results aren't there, you're not going to keep your job. So 100%. I think he said after that year, I can't run with this guy. And they spent that whole offseason trying to replace him. If Deshaun Watson didn't have the legal troubles, I believe to this day he would have been a 49er.
I'm convinced the trade package they sent to Miami was the package they put together for Watson. And when that hit, they're like, all right, well, now we just got to trade up. Yeah, I agree with you.
You're not far off. They were in on Stafford. They checked in other guys. They were in on Watson. That happened. They made the trade to Miami to move up to get Lance. Everything they've done has told you that they want to move on. And Jimmy comes back this year, and he did, he battled through injuries. I'm giving him credit. I mean, he was playing for his career. He was playing for like a contract year, but he battled through injuries. He didn't play particularly well. In the playoffs, I thought, again, he was terrible, and whether that was because of injuries or whatever it was, but it was this complicated thing where like they were winning with him and not without him, but the play without him was so bad, and he made things bad for Shanahan because all these 10-loss seasons. So it was complicated. That is the best way to put it, is complication. And in the end, he's been a very polarizing figure where he has, they call him Jimmy stands, right? Is that what? Where he has his support group, which I think is small, but a lot of the fan base right now is like, dude, get the hell out of here. And I don't know that he deserves that. I don't think he does. My thing with him, Brian, I never hated Jimmy. To me, just the writing was on the wall.
Sure.
The Niners don't want him. The Niners are moving on. So it wasn't a personal thing for me where I'm like, get the hell out of here. It was more like, I'm just seeing what's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm seeing what's in front of me. So that's what I thought with it.
Yeah. The thing about Jimmy Garoppolo, and the thing about the argument, right, that the 49ers, and this argument is out there, and it's starting to die down in the national media with more reports coming out, like, that they're allowing him to seek a trade, which, we've known for a while as 49er fans and people who write about the team or talk about the team, like they allowed that back in March. Like, that's not new. It's just new to the national media. But ultimately, I think the reality is this: Jimmy Garoppolo is an average NFL quarterback who has glimpses of above average play a handful of times during a season.
Yep.
And if you look at, when we talk about, well, look at Kyle Shanahan's record with Jimmy Garoppolo and look at it without it. And I say, okay, let's look at it, right? Who were the quarterbacks playing for Kyle Shanahan when Jimmy Garoppolo was not? Brian Hoyer, CJ Beathard, and Nick Mullins. Are any of those quarterbacks even an average starting NFL quarterback? The answer is no. Why do we know the answer is no? Because they aren't playing or starting for any other team in the NFL right now. And so really what you say when Kyle Shanahan wins with Jimmy Garoppolo, what you're really saying is Kyle Shanahan wins when he gets average quarterback play from the quarterback position, right? That's what it is. When he can get professional quarterback play, he wins. And so I feel like when you say Kyle Shanahan hasn't won without Jimmy Garoppolo, what you're glossing over is because he hasn't had anybody else that is even average starting quarterback. And now he has a 22-year-old kid with tools out the wazoo and the mental makeup that you dream of in a quarterback. And you have to look at that and go, man, if he can win at the clip that he did with average quarterback play, what is that going to look like with a kid like Trey Lance? If, and that's still an if, I believe it's going to happen, but it's still an if, right? We've only seen him in 2.5 games, really, right? 10 quarters of NFL football. If he even scratches the surface of that ceiling, this offense is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely unbelievable.
And we'll get into those expectations for Lance, but you brought up a good point about, I don't think people understand like how bad Beathard and Mullins played. Not that they always played bad, just right. They were so turnover prone. I'm going to give 2020 as an example. Nick Mullins single-handedly kept them out of the playoffs against Dallas, against Washington, against Philly. He made turnovers in the red zone that if you just had a quarterback who didn't set the world on fire, you're 9-7 without your starting quarterback and without Nick Bosa that year. So that says a lot. Yeah. Now, to get into to answer Tim's question, what's going to happen with Garoppolo, I'll be honest with you. I've seen so many different reports and so many things. I don't know if anybody knows. I saw today that the Falcons seem to be interested. I think Ryan Pace maybe was the name I saw who's there now. I don't know if I'm right on that.
No. Are you talking about the GM in Atlanta?
Yeah, somebody I saw in Atlanta.
It's Fontenot. He's a former Saints guy.
There was somebody who was there who had a relationship with Garoppolo at Eastern Illinois. I saw.
Okay. But, yeah, I'm not sure. But so Arthur Smith runs that, and Arthur Smith runs that Kubiak style offense, right?
Yeah, and I guess that's a possibility. Mariota, was just a journeyman, and then I think there's Desmond Ridder there.
Well, and injury concerns there.
Yeah, so maybe it's Mariota. A possibility. I kind of thought the Falcons were just kind of throwing the season away to get one of the QBs next year, but I guess that's a possibility. I don't buy the Browns. I mean, I say that, and then they'll probably trade for him, but Watson won't be gone more than 8 games. They have Brissett there.
By the way.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
Yeah.
They have Brissett there. I don't know about that. The Giants, I don't see them bringing him in. They got to see what they have in Daniel Jones.
And they have $6 million in cap space right now.
Right. Seattle's a great spot, but are the Niners going to trade him? It's not that they wouldn't trade him inside the division because they're afraid of him. It's that it's more drama. Like, do you really want that twice a year? Do you really, that's the thing. So if he gets cut, I think Seattle would be there, but the trade stuff, I just don't know. I don't think, Brian, that he can be there when camp starts. It's just too much of a distraction. And people say in a perfect world, well, why can't he be the backup? Sure. In a perfect world, it would be nice to have him as the backup, but they need to hand Trey Lance the keys. And I know for a fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is very well liked in that locker room.
Oh yeah.
You do not need him behind Lance's shoulder. Lance, if Lance fell to them at 12 or they took him in the second round, you could say, all right, we'll see what happens. They mortgage the future for Lance.
Right.
Hand him the keys and get everything out of the way for him. So I don't know. He's not going to be there, but I don't know when or how it's going to happen.
Yeah. Jack Hammer, who covers the 49ers for the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, tweeted out yesterday that Jimmy Garoppolo makes the 49ers better, right? Because a Lance Garoppolo combo is better than a Lance Sudfeld combo. And I replied to him and I said, inherently, that fact is true, right? Roster talent wise, Jimmy Garoppolo is better than Nate Sudfeld, but there's more that goes into it than simply who makes them better as the backup quarterback. And that is team and roster dynamics, right? And those are more important than having a better backup quarterback, because as they say, if you have to count on your backup quarterback to win a handful of games in a season, your season is probably lost already, right? Because that means that your starter went down with an injury that kept them out for multiple weeks. And so you can't really plan your roster management around, well, what if he gets injured, right? Well, that I don't think there's a team in the NFL that plans their roster that way, right? A front office that manages their roster with what ifs. And so, no, you can't have a $27 million quarterback as your backup quarterback. And if you're Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers come to you and go, look, we want you to be Trey's backup, but we want you to take a pay cut. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I give them the middle finger and I tell them no, right? Like, I'm not going to do you any favors. If you want me on this team, you're going to pay me $27 million. Otherwise, I'm gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, get me out of here.
He's not going to want to be there. He's going to force it out at some point.
And I see that, on, on Twitter, 49ers Twitter, right? Well, why can't he just be a backup? Well, it doesn't work out that way. Well, he could take a pay cut. No, he's not going to take a pay cut. If he takes a pay cut, it's going to be from a team that's going to give him a starting opportunity, because that's the only way that he's going to earn another contract with a different team moving forward. So Jimmy Garoppolo is gone. Matt Barrows was on Candlestick Chronicles with Kyle Madsen and Chris Biederman, and Kyle's probably going to appreciate that I put him first, but Chris Biederman covers the 49ers for the Sacramento Bee, and Barrows was on their show, and he basically said Jimmy Garoppolo is not a 49er. He hasn't been in Santa Clara since that farewell press conference. He's been rehabbing down in Southern California and whatnot, but for all intents and purposes, he's gone already, right? And so, like you said, I wrote an article earlier this week, is basically said, mark it down. He's not going to be on the roster week 1. But one of the issues is a lack of trade partners, right? Like you said, the Browns, unless Watson does get a lengthier suspension than 8 games, which he deserves and he should, and will he? Probably not. But if he was gone for a full season, it would make sense. They've got that team has like I think close to $40 million in cap space right now, even with that absurd Watson contract, because the way they structured it was to make this season very small salary for him, with in mind that he was going to be suspended, which just makes me feel icky, but it is what it is, right? But the Falcons don't make sense, right? The Giants don't make sense. The Texans have already said, like, no, we like Davis Mills. They don't make sense. So unless there's a dark horse team out there somewhere that all of a sudden, makes sense, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't going to get traded. So what is going to happen? He's going to get cut, right? And I don't think, like you said, I don't think the 49ers are going to hold on to him through camp, just hoping another team has a quarterback injury where they're going to need to trade for Garoppolo, because there's a lot of things that they're trying to get done right now, not the least of which is get their 22-year-old quarterback ready for the season and get everybody else on board with him as QB1. That's one. But 2, they're trying to sign Deebo Samuel to a pretty hefty contract. And they would also like to extend Nick Bosa to a hefty contract. Now, I don't know that they're trying to do that right now. I think they're going to look towards next season. But if I was Bosa and I've torn an ACL in the NFL and I had I tore my abductor muscle in college and I had an ACL injury in high school as well, I'm trying to get that extension as soon as possible. So perhaps they're trying to get that done, but regardless, they got to sign Deebo. They have to, and they will. But it would definitely make it easier if Garoppolo's $24.2 million wasn't on the books.
All right, 24 minutes on Jimmy. Why not?
Let's do it.
24
minutes. That's 1 minute for every million that they save when he's not on the roster anymore.
That's one way to look at it. All right, so now moving into the quarterback that is actually going to be on the roster is Trey Lance. And I don't know if you heard the interview that Matt Mayoko had with Steve Young on his podcast, but Steve Young put it, as he normally does, so well in terms of what to expect from Trey Lance. So what Young said was, you can't judge him in week 1. You can't judge him in week 3. You can't judge him probably after year 1. And he brought up things like he's got to have a 4 interception game and see how he bounces back. He's got to get booed at home and see how he bounces back. He's got to have a 4 touchdown game when his head is huge and see how he bounces back. He's got to adjust. He's got to play in big games. He's got to play in primetime games. There's all these things that he has to go through. And for me with Lance, it's this, and there's going to be a lot of, I guess, hot takes, right? From national media, from people on Twitter, everywhere, after everything he does, after an interception he throws, after an inaccurate pass, everything. This is the bottom line with Lance, and it's not the sexy thing to say. It's not going to get clicks. It's not going to get listens. But with Lance, the answer to almost everything for like the next, I don't know, year and a half is we'll see.
Right.
It's pretty much it. Like that's the rational thing to think about him is who is Trey Lance going to be? I don't know. We'll see. He just threw 2 picks. Is he a bust? I don't know. We'll see. He threw four touchdowns. Is he the next Josh Allen? We'll see. It really is with everything. And now we won't do that. We're going to have to react on it on a week-by-week basis too, as everybody does. But the reality is he is a young quarterback. And honestly, Brian, all he's got to do is not screw up for this team to be good. He's got to not Nick Mullins. Just don't be Nick Mullins. Don't throw crushing interceptions. If he doesn't do that, they're going to win 10 games. They got a great roster. They're going to be fine. But patience is the key. Patience is the word. He's a young QB. There's ups and downs. He's probably not going to be the most accurate QB in the world anyway. That doesn't mean he can be a good QB, but patience, man. It's going to be ups and downs. Yeah. That's what I expect this year.
Well, and that was part of the reason why I was very vocal last season is saying like, I think Trey should have started last season, not because I thought that he was going to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but because he needs reps. Like that's what he needs. And, one of the advantages of having a rookie quarterback is you have a rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback contract, which allows you to do things like have the highest paid left tackle in the NFL, have the highest paid tight end in the NFL, have a top probably 10 paid wide receiver in the NFL, have the highest paid edge rusher in the NFL, right? Like all of these things that they either A, have done or B, want to do, they can do because Trey Lance is on a rookie contract.
Right.
Now, things would have been a lot easier with Deebo Samuel if they had Jimmy's $26 million that he made last year available this past offseason, right? They could have rolled that over. They would have had a ton of space, right? And that's, again, one of the reasons why there's no way that Jimmy Garoppolo is on this roster come week 1 is because that $24 million, they can roll that over next year. So now it's like kind of double dipping, right? You get to roll over the cap space, plus he's gone next year. And so Trey Lance is a 22-year-old quarterback who last played a full season of football in 2019. That's who he is.
Right.
And for me, I know that I have to be ready for games like you said where he throws 4 interceptions or games where he doesn't drive them down the field in the 2-minute drill to get the victory or whatever the case may be. The expectations that I have for Trey Lance, somebody asked me on Twitter earlier today, what are your expectations for Lance in camp? And to me, they're kind of similar to what I expect in the regular season. Is this: I want to see him command the huddle, and I think he will. I think he has that capability. He has those leadership skills. The players have talked glowingly about Trey Lance, which is one of the reasons why I'm excited. Right? I don't need me to be excited. I don't need to look at Trey Lance and go, here's the things that excite me. I can listen to George Kittle. I can listen to Brandon Ayuk. I can listen to Robbie Gould. I can listen to these players say like, man, this kid's ceiling is through the roof, right? But I want to see him command the huddle, and I would love to see him somewhere between 55 to 65% when it comes to accuracy. That's it. That's all I want to see from him. Those 2 things. And if we see those 2 things, like you said, this roster is so talented. It is so talented. There have been people that, have diminished it in terms of like rankings. They put out rankings where it's like, I saw one from CBS Sports where they had the 49ers ranked as like the 17th best roster in the NFL. And I was just like, okay, well, you don't A, watch football, and B, you don't know anything about the 49ers roster, right? Right? Because ESPN also put out top 10s at every position, and the 49ers had the best left tackle. They had the best tight end. They had a top 10 wide receiver. They had a top 5 defensive end. They had the best off-ball linebacker. Like, here are all these levels of the roster that have these players, and you're like, the 17th best roster? No. So, like you said, as long as he doesn't perform at Nick Mullins 2020 levels, this team is going to win football games. I've always said, I think the floor for Trey is Jimmy's performance last season, which was average at best.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right now, Jimmy's great on third down, right? Is Trey going to be as good as Jimmy on third down? Probably not. Probably nowhere near as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. But at the same time, part of the issue was Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't that great on first and second down. So now all of a sudden we're on third and long, and Jimmy Garoppolo is able to make these plays. But it's my hope that with Trey Lance, you aren't in those same positions. You aren't in third and long. You aren't in even third and intermediate, right? Like you're third and short because you've got a stout running game. You've got the threat of Trey Lance in the running game, which is really all that it's going to take to open up some things for the offense. Mm-hmm. And so, do I expect like RG3 level performance or RG3 rookie season level performance from Trey Lance? Probably not. Right. RG3 started at Baylor for what I believe 3 years before he came in the NFL. He had more starting experience at a higher competition level. But what did RG3 have his rookie year that Trey Lance has in his second year? Kyle Shanahan is his offensive coordinator. So like you said, as long as he's not actively losing games, that's all that I want to see from this kid. And he's going to have 5 primetime games. Like you said, how's he going to perform in those? He's going to go into some really difficult environments. And so how does he do? What does he look like? And, am I expecting 4,000 plus yards and 20 plus touchdowns and 10 running touchdowns? No, I'm not going to expect any numbers. I don't want to do that because I'm just going to probably disappoint myself. So like I said, what do I expect from Trey Lance? I expect him to command the huddle. I expect to see him make the right decision more often than not. And if he has, like I said, 55 to 65% accuracy, that's going to be perfect. That's all I need from him.
Yeah, and I think somewhere where the Niners are getting slept on too in terms of their roster, and not to gloss over the Debo contract, but I think this late in the game, I think we're okay. I was nervous for a while. I think going into camp, they're going to figure it out. And this is, I think Fred Warner signed in like July 21st.
July 21st. Yep.
Yeah, so today.
Yeah, today.
And Kittle, I believe, was early August. Maybe August 4th. It's ridiculous that I know the dates. Dude, I need a life or something like this. but I think that's what it was. So you could probably, you said probably when something happens with Jimmy, you could see almost pretty quick Debo. And, and I think the Bosa thing is interesting to me because they've never given out money to a non-Q, really anybody, that they're going to have to give Bosa. So I'm interested to see what happens there. I don't think
that Trent Williams contract's pretty hefty.
It is, but I think Nick Bosa you're going to be like,
Nick's going to be $30 million a year.
Wow, money. Yeah. So we'll see. I think they're going to try to get it done. I think everybody wants to get it done. I'm just interested. I'm saying I'm interested. We'll just see what happens. Sure. But anyway, where I'm going with this, Warren Sharp had posted the best receiving corps in 2022, who we thought were going to be in the Niners were 2. And I was like,
sure.
You're goddamn right. They're probably
that's
2.
right.
People are being on them like crazy. I'm going to tell you why. It was receiving corps, the whole thing, your pass catchers, your tight end. The Niners have 2 absolutely blue chip dudes.
Superstars.
And Debo.
Yep.
Superstars. Don't even have just throw. All they did with Garoppolo is they just handed him the ball. Here's a 2-yard shovel pass. Go run it 70 yards.
Right.
Kittle is great after the catch. 2 absolute studs that Lance doesn't have to make 15, 20 yards completions to. We could literally do a safe throw. I mean, the play that saved the season was a pass 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, right?
The screen pass in Chicago that he took to the house.
So you have those 2 guys who are absolute studs. And then you have people that I feel like nationally get slept on. Brandon Ayuk is one.
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk, after he got out of the doghouse, whatever that weird shit was, I don't know what was on there. But once he got out of the doghouse, he had a really good season. And he's got a chemistry with Lance. So to me,
that's the big thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I think Lance Ayuk could take a big step with Lance this year. Now, I don't expect Debo to ever do what he did last year. That was a once in a lifetime amazing season. That doesn't mean he's not going to be really good again. I just don't. I think that's too high of a level.
And I don't think they need him to. Like the reason that he had that season was because they had injuries in the running back room, and so he had to. Yeah, it was out of necessity. I don't think Debo wants a season like that.
Agree. Again, either. But so now you have these 2 blue chip guys, and you have a legit number 2 in Ayuk, right? And now you have the people that really, unless you're a Niner fan, you probably don't know about. Juwan Jennings, who's just making tough catches last year and looks like he's really going to ascend, and he's your 4th option. And I think somebody like McLeod, who again, well, he's going to return kicks. Well, have you watched him play? Because he's kind of a Kyle Shanahan receiver. He's really fast, and Kyle's going to find ways to get him the ball in space. We'll see with Danny Gray. You never know with rookies. I get the fast guy, I hope. But this is a really, 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 really talented pass catching group.
I would say Shanahan came out and said, I actually scouted and liked McLeod as a receiver, and then found out later he returned kicks. So it was 100%. He wanted McLeod as a receiver, and there's just a bonus that he's also a kick returner. So I think he's excited about him.
Watch. I'm not saying he's going to catch 60 balls, but he's going to make plays. There's going to be some plays that they'll probably draw up for him, and he's going to have like a 30-yard gain when you're like, big play type thing.
Right.
So I'm as excited about their receiving corps, their pass catchers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't even remember the last time I've been this excited. 1994. I don't know.
I was gonna say, I was trying to think, I would say probably the last time I felt really good about their pass catchers would have been Vernon Davis, Michael Crabtree, and Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
But again, you've got Anquan Bolden on the back end of his career. You've got Michael Crabtree, who really kind of underachieved in the NFL. And then you've got Vernon Davis, who there's been some Vernon Davis slander in 49ers Twitter that I was not ready to stand for, because that dude was incredible. And I love George Kittle. I've got a George Kittle jersey. I love everything that George Kittle does. I love everything that George Kittle stands for. I would still argue that Vernon Davis is a better receiver at the tight end position than Kittle was.
Wow, that's a good debate. That's a really good debate.
But like you said, it hasn't been this deep, because look at last year, right? You had Debo and you had Ayuk, but then behind it you had a Juwan Jennings who was still learning the position and didn't come on until late, and then you had Mohamed Sanu and Trent Sherfield, and then a rotating cast of characters, behind that. And now, like you said, you've got Debo, a certified superstar. You've got Ayuk, who again took that step that he needed to and really came on at the end of the season. You've got Jennings, who also took that step and came on at the end of the season. But then behind them, you've got Ray McLeod and you've got Danny Gray. So it's the depth that they have that really is, to me, and the reason why Warren has them listed at 2 is because, again, they've got depth to really take advantage of some defenses for sure, and a lot of speed, which is also key.
All right, you got me thinking about this Davis Kittle thing now, because that's a really good. All right, so I'm looking at Vernon's stats, and I think Vernon had some drops.
Sure, but so does Kittle.
Vernon had a really stupid penalty in the NFC Championship game. That game is burned in my brain. That 2011 NFC Championship game, like I have nightmares about it to this day. But look at what he did, and he did this on an offense that was not a passing offense.
Right. Right.
2009, 78 catches, 965 yards, 13 TDs. He had 914 yards the following year. 2013, 850 yards, 13 TDs. Where Vernon, to me, was just unbelievable. And I did bring up the dumb penalty, but that doesn't take away what he did in the playoffs. He was, listen to this, Brian, his playoff games, 7 for 180 and 2 TDs in that New Orleans game, and one of the biggest catches in 49ers history.
Yeah, the catch 3.
Yep. 3 for 112 and 2 TDs in that NFC Championship game, in a game where it was basically Brett Swain was right. I think Crabtree didn't do anything. That was Vernon. That was it.
Yep, that was it.
The next season and the run to the Super Bowl, 1 for 44, but then 5 for 106 in a TD and 6 for 104 in the Super Bowl. So he did 4 out of his first 5 playoff games were over 100 yards. He was a beast. 5 playoff touchdowns. Absolute beast. Now, again, I love both of these guys. They're both fantastic. This is just
100%. Yeah.
Now, do you look at George Kittle again?
It's ugly in the playoffs.
I was going to get to that. Yeah, I'm going to get to that because it's just a good discussion, right?
Yeah.
Kittle's going to what Kittle's done during the regular season, unbunbelievable catching.
Especially that was at the 20. Was it 2020 or it was 2020 when he broke the record, or was that 2018? That's
2018 with Beathard and whoever else throwing to him. 88, 13,
Mullins,
77, and he had 85 for 1,053 after that. The only year he's played 16 games, really, as a starter with 2018, he was unbelievable. Yeah. His pace is consistently unbelievable. He's 9 top 5 all time in yards per game, catches per game, everything is fantastic. Now, what he doesn't do is score a lot of touchdowns. He's only got 20 touchdowns in his career. We just said Vernon had a couple of years with 13. And you look at
with double digit,
And again, I don't think they've used him in the playoffs the way that they should.
Right.
But you look at Kittle's postseason games. So Kittle's played 6 postseason games. He has 15 catches, 179 yards, and a touchdown. Vernon had more than that yardage-wise in his first playoff game ever. So it's a good debate. So
Sure.
They're both good blockers. They're both probably the 2 best tight ends. No disrespect to Brent Jones, but probably the 2 best tight ends in Niners history.
49ers history, yeah.
Yeah, and you just have Davis, who maybe played a little bigger in the playoffs, maybe was featured more in the playoffs.
I think it's that second part for sure.
Yeah, and I'd like to see Kittle have one of those 10 TD years, right? I'd like to see Kittle get into the playoffs and just have that monster game. And again, I think they leave him in the block. I hate that. Let him be a monster. But it's a good debate, man. I think I don't think when you talk about the pluses and the minuses for either one of them, I don't think you're knocking either one of them. It's just a good debate. That's a good article. Yeah, that was really good. I think I saw, I might have seen that, and I jumped in.
It was just a debate on Twitter. That it wasn't even an article. It was just a debate. Yeah, but it was a good one. But there were definitely people who to pump up George Kittle were slandering Vernon Davis, and I was like, I don't think you guys remember very well how impressive Vernon Davis was, not just as a player but as a physical specimen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That running. Yeah, he was awesome. I love. But hey, they've both repped 85 very well, and so I'm all on board. I'm all on board. I love both of them.
That's awesome, man. That's a good talk. All right, so I did want to ask you too. I'm a little bit worried about the O-line, just the interior. I think McGlinchey is going to be fine. I think Williams is going to be fine. Brunskill, I like him as a guard. Aaron Banks, we'll see. I mean, if the Niners have faith in him, maybe he's going to come across. I'm a little bit worried about the center position because it's so important to Kyle Shanahan's offense.
Yes.
And Jake Brendel's 30. It's not like he's this young guy who's he's 23.
He's not a prospect. Yeah.
Right. He's been around. So do they have to shift Brunskill there, and do McKivitz or more maybe play? I don't know. Or even Buford. I don't know. But the other guard spot, I'm a little bit one of the guard center. I have faith to an extent that they know what they're doing with Banks. They're kind of handing him the position. He had a redshirt year. We'll see. There'll be ups and downs as there always are. But Laken Tomlinson is, it's big shoes to fill. But I'm worried about Forster handpicked Brendel. He's the guy. Okay, man. I hope so. I hope so. I hope you're right. I'm not saying maybe he will be. I don't know. But that's just when you have an unknown like that with a rookie quarterback, it's a little concerning.
One of the things I'm more than just a little concerned. So here's the thing with the center position, right? It's so interesting to me that it is as important as it is in the Kyle Shanahan offense, and they did not really do anything to address it.
Right.
And the comment we just saw up there, Forster knows Brendel from his time in Miami, and Forster is the reason why Brendel is in San Francisco now. He brought him in to be the backup. Now he has to start, right? And so is that ideal? I mean, it's hard to say yes, right? But the one thing that I think it can be a little bit underrated is Trey Lance spent a lot of time with the second team last year in practice, taking second team reps, right? And his center at the time was Jake Brendel. So there is a relationship between the two of them there, which is good, right? Like you want that center QB relationship to be solid. I think personally, what they, the same gentleman who said Forster handpicked Brendel says the fact they haven't addressed speaks to their confidence. I would agree to an extent. I would agree that, they do have confidence. That's why, I think they have confidence in Banks. There were reports that Banks could have played last year towards the end of the season, but Tomlinson was, great. So there wasn't really any place for him. And honestly, I don't think they even had any consideration of putting him at right guard. I'm not an offensive lineman, but Brad Graham, who runs the SF Niners, that he's an O-line expert, right? That was his position. Loves talking O-line. But he has talked about how difficult it can be to switch from one side to the other, just with footwork and all of that. And so I think what they did with Banks was they knew that Tomlinson was going to walk. They weren't going to pay him what he was going to command on the open market. And so they brought his replacement in a year early, let him learn the position. And now he's going to, hit the ground running once the season starts. I have a lot of confidence that Aaron Banks is going to be fine, mainly because he's right next to the best left tackle in the NFL in Trent Williams. That's going to help a little bit. I think with Brendel, I think what they're going to do is give him an opportunity to show that he is ready to take the position. And if he doesn't, there is somebody that's sitting out there just ready to get into camp with a team when they need him, and that's J.C. Tretter. J.C. Tretter was the center for the Browns for the past, I believe, 4 seasons. And he's still available. And I think part of why he's still available is because he is older. And this would, again, just be more along the lines of an Alex Mack situation. You bring him in for a year. You help him mold either Donovan West, the undrafted free agent out of Arizona State, or Nick Zakelj, who they took in the 6th round, was a tackle at Fordham, but it sounds like they want him to move inside to center. And they also have undrafted free agent Jason Poe, who was actually my favorite undrafted free agent they had. What I'm more excited about for Jason Poe is to see him at fullback. I think they're gonna. I think he's gonna be on the practice squad this season, and I think he could quite literally be the replacement for Kyle Juszczyk. He played guard at Mercer. He also played a little bit of center, but he also played some fullback, which was awesome. But I think there is, if Brendel during camp and during the preseason isn't necessarily showing what they want to see, they could always bring Tretter in. And Tretter didn't practice hardly at all last season with the Browns, but showed up every game and played well. So I heard Tretter is unable to practice during the week. But here's the thing, is that Tretter's coming from that Kubiak system. So I don't think he'd have to practice all that much to be an effective player on Sunday. Now, do you want a center that isn't practicing during the week when you've got a 22-year-old, for all intents and purposes, rookie quarterback? Maybe that's part of the issue, and maybe that's why he doesn't end up being brought in. But again, if Brendel isn't showing what he needs to, they've got to do something, because that is the linchpin of the offensive line. And we've seen what happens when they have subpar play at the center position, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. So yes, I am worried, but just like with Trey Lance, it's got to be more. We'll see, right? Which sucks to say, and which isn't good content, and which isn't, fans don't want to hear. We'll see, but ultimately, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and I'll give them credit too. I mean, you look at back to 2019 when Staley and McGlinchey missed all that time, and you got Skule and Brunskill playing the tackles, and you're like, who the hell are these guys? And they go undefeated with them, and so maybe they know more than we do.
Or McKivitz against the Rams, right? McKivitz against the Rams,
right. Kind of. Maybe it's just they have these system fits that just work. Mm-hmm. Again, we'll see what it's all about. All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot with one more thing. I don't know if I told you I was going to ask you this or not, but I love this defense. I love it. I love the Nico Ryans. I love that they just have waves on the defensive line. That's how they were so dominant last year. They had They had Stafford in the last week of the season shook. They had Prescott shook. Aaron Rodgers couldn't move the ball. I know it was 2 degrees or whatever it was, but he couldn't move the ball. They played well in the NFC Championship game. They only gave up 17.5 points over the last 12 games, including the playoffs.
Yep.
And now they've added more guys. With Hyder, with the dude from the Colts whose name is escaping me.
Kamiko Torre.
Right. Yeah, I love Torre. I love that. I love that. My dad's a Colts fan, so I'll pay attention to him. I thought he was a good player.
Yeah.
I love what they did there. Kinlaw has got to have that big year, right?
Yes.
But what do you think? Is there anything in your mind? Because I have a couple things I'll say after that can derail the defense at all. Obviously injuries, but if we're not talking injuries, just things that maybe we're overlooking that can derail the defense. Do you think there's anything?
You know what? The thing that has my favorite thing that has happened this offseason is that they finally invested in the secondary. That is something that they haven't really done in the entire Shanahan Lynch era. Now you could say they invested in Richard Sherman, but we're still talking about a Richard Sherman on the back end of his career, still played really well, especially in 2019. I'm not taking anything away from him. I love Richard Sherman. I'm very excited for him to be on Amazon's Thursday Night Football coverage. Like, that's going to be phenomenal. He's going to do a great job. But they haven't really invested in the secondary. And over the past 2 off seasons, right? Last off season, they drafted 2 cornerbacks, right? They drafted Diamador Lenore, and they drafted Ambry Thomas, right? Mm-hmm. Ambry Thomas ended up having a pretty big impact on the defense later in the season. Diamador Lenore was the hot name in preseason and early, and then all of a sudden it just felt like he was in the witness protection program. I still don't know where he's at. But then this offseason, they make a huge investment in Charvarius Ward, which to me was one of the best signings of the offseason across the NFL, because Ward quietly is one of the better man-to-man corners in the NFL. If you look at his next-gen stats and you look at if you take a step back from just, the glory stats, interceptions, things like that, when you're looking at the secondary, Charvarius Ward is going to make this team significantly better because he can be put on an island, and they can trust him on the left side and then play more zone and but at the same time, Emmanuel Mosley is criminally underrated as well.
Incredibly.
So they have so much depth in the secondary now, especially at cornerback with Ward, with Mosley, with Verrett. Hey, if Verrett comes back, right, and he's at 2020 levels, that there's not a better cornerback trio in the NFL. I will die on that hill. There is not a better trio if Verrett is healthy, right? So you've got those 3, but then you've also got Thomas, who showed promise at the end of the year. And then you've got these 2 guys that they drafted this year that I'm really excited about, which is Womack, who I think is kind of earmarked for the slot. And then you've got Tariq Castro-Fields, who I think is a unique prospect and very well could surprise some people. He fell to the 6th round, and Eric Crocker did a breakdown of him. And basically at the end of it, Crocker was like, I have no idea why he's in the 6th round. Like, he should have gone higher than that, right? And so the secondary has been the Achilles heel for this defense, and would have been my answer any other year than this year of what can derail this defense. Now that they've addressed that, I quite literally, and I'm not trying to be a homer here, I don't think there's anything that can derail this defense. The only question mark they have is at strong safety, but they still have 3 guys that could really fill that role that Tart played in Tarvarius Moore, Talanoa Hufanga, and George Odom, who they brought over from the Colts. I don't know. I know you said your dad's a Colts fan. Colts fans were really upset that they did not bring Odom back. Because he's just a good player, right? And that's what you need at strong safety. You don't need a superstar, you just need a good player. And so now they bring Odom in, who filled in incredibly during the regular season last year for the Colts when they had some injuries, and he played at strong safety, and he's a special teams ace, which is a bonus, right? And so I honestly and then this week the 49ers signed Robert Kimdiche as the newest Chris Kasurik reclamation project, right? So now that defensive line, on the edge, you've got Bosa, you've got Ebukam, you've got Toure, you've got Charles Omenihu, you've got Kerry Hyder, who I actually think is probably going to play more inside than on the edge. And then you've also got Drake Jackson, the guy they drafted in the 2nd round, right?
Nobody's really talking about.
Right, exactly. And so you've got incredible depth there. And then if you look to the inside, you've got Armstead, you've got Kinlaw, you've got Maurice Hurst, who is back and hopefully healthy, right? Who would have played a bigger role last year. You've got Kevin Givens. Now you've got Kimdiche and Hyder. Like, an embarrassment of riches along the defensive line. And then we've got arguably the best linebacker trio in the NFL with Fred Warner, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Dre Greenlaw. So honestly, no, I don't think there's anything that can derail this defense. And I genuinely expect this defense to be, if not the best defense in the NFL, at least top 3.
Yeah, and I think I'm right there with you on it. I absolutely love the defense. I love them at all 3 levels. The safety thing to me, I mean, I'm not super super confident, but it's one of those things where like they probably feel they have system fits.
Sure.
Right. So between Odom, between Hufanga, between Tavarius Moore, like whoever, like they feel like they could throw it at a wall, something's going to stick.
Probably. I also really like Leon O'Neal Jr., their undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M.
Yeah, maybe somebody like that steps up,
Yeah.
The one thing I'm worried about, and maybe it's going to be nothing, but they only gave up, I think it was 76 yards rushing over the last 12 games a game. And if you take out that fluke fake punt against Seattle, it's like 70 yards. Like you couldn't run on him. DJ Jones was a huge part of that. And he is there's 30 million reasons that show you how underrated he is. And, I'm a big fan of DJ and Big Dave's Barbecue. Check it out. I love his family. Yeah. They're great people. Yeah. But he was so underrated, and people are like, oh, well, it's a pass. You got to rush the passer. It's a pass. It's passing.
He was good at that too, by the way.
Right. He did that too.
Yeah.
But also it's a lot easier to play defense when it's 3rd and 8 and not 3rd and 3. 100%. So that's the one thing to me that I kind of wonder, is that the signing, the free agent that people are going to be like, wait, why are the Niners all of a sudden getting run on a little bit more? Well, he's not there. So he was underrated. He didn't get a lot of press, but that's the one thing that I'm just kind of like, is that going to hurt? And maybe it won't. Maybe Kinlaw is going to come in and play inside and be outstanding. I hope he does.
That was Kinlaw's strength. That was the strength of his game, was run defense. Yeah. So, ultimately, and that's the thing is, like you said, like DJ Jones is a huge loss, but at the same time, they invested a 1st-round pick in Juwan Kinlaw. And you're going to be hard pressed to invest a 1st-round pick in a player and also pay this guy $30 million over the course of his contract. Like they weren't going to do that. So, and that's, very similar to Aaron Banks, right? Like it's hard for fans to step back and be like, look, here's what they invested. Whether we know they're good or not, we don't. But at a certain point, it's, the old adage, right? You got to shit or get off the pot, right? You invested in these guys. Now you have to see what you have in them. And if they are a bust, it's better to find out now than a year or two down the road, right? So I'm pretty confident that Kinlaw is going to have a good season, right? He looks to be slimmer than he has been his entire time here. It sounds like his knee is finally healthy. They did what they needed to do as opposed to just stopgap solutions. So that's also a bonus. And then again, you've got Eric Armstead, who looks like he's going to move inside permanently. And then Givens and Kimdiche and Hurst. Like, I think there are enough bodies there, Hyder, right? I think there are enough bodies there that they're going to find somebody that can, at the very least, replace Jones's run defense, and then, find somebody who can rush the passer from that 3 technique as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you got anything else you want to hit on, man?
No, I'm like I said, I'm just excited. Camp starts next Wednesday, trying to get down there on Thursday, trying to meet up with Jason Aponte. He'll be there through, I believe, the 2nd. So excited to hang out with him. Brad Graham, Jordan Elliott, like, there's a community of us that have kind of formed around content, 49ers content creation. And so excited about that. And I'm just excited to see what this team looks like with Trey Lance under center. I am all in, right? All in. I'm John Malkovich. I am splashing the pot, right? I am all in on this guy. And I think he's going to turn some heads, and I think he's going to have some games where we're like, ooh, yikes. But I think he's going to have more games where we're like, man, the future looks bright, and I'm excited.
I just love the Rounders reference right away. Right away. Great movie. If any, I don't know, what was it? 98. So any young people,
man, yeah, it's been a minute, but I'll throw another one out when it comes to Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa. Pay that man his money.
If you guys have not seen Rounders, I think it's on Netflix or HBO. It's on one of them. But
yes,
awesome
go watch it. Go watch it.
Awesome movie. Yeah, I think maybe Matt Damon's best movie. It might be for me.
It's up there. It's up there for sure.
Matt Damon movies I love, but that one I definitely probably one of his best. So
yes.
All right. Well, hey man, Brian, again, it's good to have you. It's going to be a great season. We're pumped.
Glad to be here.
Probably next week or somewhere around
there.
We're gonna have some
guests. Good.
We're gonna mix it up. So thanks everybody for tuning in on YouTube. The podcast will be out in a day, probably by tomorrow, I would think.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
And let's Yeah, let's get this thing jumping off.
Let's go. Let's get a Super Bowl this year.
Let's go, baby.
All right, man.
All right. Bye.